welcome to Make Your Own Fun. I'm here with Marie Lecrivain, and she has so many
Don't
accomplishments
don't
under her
don't do the
belt.
laundry list.
Well, I'm at least going to say that you are a writer, an editor, a publisher with Sybaritic Press, and I just wanted to kind of start off the top of the show and first of all say thank you. I'm going to hop in my own Wayback Machine of choice back to the year 2008, which I believe, if memory serves, I believe you were one of the first people to give me a feature at Beyond Baroque back
Yeah,
in the days when I put out the Jack Assery book, which is no longer available.
aw.
I know it was never through like a press. It was never really. It was kind of just a homemade book, but yeah.
Yeah, that was the Beyond Baroque first Sunday of the month reading, which I hosted for about 2 years, 3 years,
Mhm.
and then I went on to other things.
I'm gonna ask if you're able to get to closer to a microphone or a little bit far sounding.
Hold on 1 second. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I
Is
can
that
hear
better?
you. You were just sounding a little far away, so no worries. Okay. Well, we are here today to talk about, among other things, Ashes to Stardust, and I am so excited. Ah, there it is, folks. Yeah, look at that. Look at that beautiful artwork. Let the folks at home know who actually did the artwork for that.
That's John Cunningham. He's my co-publisher with Sybaritic Press, and you should see the back. The back's fun too because it's got
Oh.
Bo the back hairstyles of Bowie.
So I have to ask, what was the thinking? Well, we can talk about the artwork, what was the story behind that, but what was the original impetus to put the anthology together?
Well, I've always been a big Bowie fan. Actually, fan would be a misnomer. Good thing he lived in another country because if I knew where he lived, I'd probably be sitting outside of his house asking, waiting for an autograph. No, I'm not like that because I've met dozens of celebrities, and because we live in LA, and I've worked in retail environments where celebrities would come in and buy things. So it just was better to leave them alone or treat them like normal people. Uh, yeah, the only time I ever fangirled over anybody was Mark Hamill. I chased him down Santa Monica Boulevard for an autograph, and he was very obliging. Uh, and there was the other time where I met Leonard Nimoy and his wife, and I made them coffee. I still have the $5 bill he tipped me with, but I did not. I said, "Thank you for your business. Have a nice day." I was yeah, and that's another story entirely. So, as far as David Bowie, I don't remember a time, honestly, where I wasn't hearing his music. The first time I definitely remember hearing it was this is a funny story. I was 6, and my next door neighbor, who were also pot dealers and growing pot in their backyard. There's another story with this entirely. They had a lot of cash. They also had a 4-year-old daughter who they bought everything for, and so they bought her like a full on stereo, and they had shown her how to put records on, and she used to play changes all the time, like
All the
loudly all the time. And it's, you know, he was just there because I'm a Gen Xer, so he was just kind of there from the beginning, you know. But really loved his Let's Dance album. I listened to that all the time in high school. Uh, I got into it's in my introduction in the book. I got into early David Bowie because on my 18th birthday, my brother had bought tickets to see David Bowie, but he didn't tell me, and I'd already made plans. Yeah,
Oh,
if I could go back, if there's like you could go back in time, I would have said yes and canceled those plans. But he gave me a cassette of David Bowie's self-titled album, and I started listening to it, and it just opened up something in me. I mean, it wasn't he was like this musician that I always really liked and had a huge crush on because I mean, God was gorgeous no matter what. But lyrically speaking, and everything that he was talking about, and then I went and I started listening to other Bowie albums like Diamond Dogs and Low and Aladdin Sane, which is my favorite of all of his early work. And I listened to that for years. because it was what it was to me was it was poetry,
Hmm.
plus just some really far out things like that he would say that were like esoterically influenced, even though I didn't really think about that at the time. Um, but lyrically for me, because I like to use prompts for my writing, I've used a lot of David Bowie's songs to, you know, write a poem or a short story, just based off of like a snippet of a lyric. And you have your favorite singers, and they go, they kind of drift in and out of your life. I stopped listening to him like late 2000s because I didn't particularly, I knew he was like one of the most versatile musicians of his generation. So there's going to be some things that he would like, and there would be some things that, you know, there's a lot of things he would love to experiment with. And there were some things of his that I didn't particularly like to listen to.
Hmm.
Uh, I also know that at that time he wasn't really touring because he'd had a heart attack like in 1999. Then he had quadruple bypass surgery or whatever. So I think that just kind of put like a little bit of a lid on him touring, but he was still like making really good albums and experimenting. And he was one of the first artists to upload his music to the internet and work with multimedia. But for me, he's always been like just that one touchstone where it's okay to be weird. And
I
I
also
that's
go ahead.
yeah, that's the basis for this anthology. Every piece of writing in there has been inspired by Bowie because he made it okay to be weird.
Right.
Not weird like Weird Al funny, but just to actually be able to, I heard Janelle Monáe in an interview yesterday, and she said there's a quote from David Bowie, and I'm gonna paraphrase it, but it totally taps into why I did this anthology. He had said, and again, she paraphrased it too, that if you're going to be true to like your art, that it's kind of like going out and swimming. You go out and swim out in the water, and when your feet don't touch the ground anymore, that's the basis, basically like the beginning of where you can start finding out who you really are as an artist or just even as a person. And the part of this was driven by some deep-seated grief because that was like the first person who ever majorly influenced me, who I also like, I just felt like a real deep connection to, even though I never met him. And I'm not alone in this. There are millions of people who felt that way. Um, but there's some wonderful essays in here by folks who were growing up, like, they were LGBTQI, and Bowie was also their touchstone for them to explore their sexuality because Bowie was gender fluid, at least back in the early days he was. And then there are people who, remember Bowie is like, there's a great essay in here from, it's one of my favorite pieces uh, by Aaron Buchanan. He wrote about the day that Bowie died, and he and his daughters were big Bowie fans with his little kids, like 5 and 9. And he took them out for, I mean, it's a wonderful piece. He took them out for ice cream, told them about David Bowie. They watched Labyrinth, but in the whole time that he's doing this, he's going back through his mind about his relationship with his father, and in a sense, not that Bowie was like a father figure to Aaron, but that he provided him with, again, like a touchstone, a place where he could go and feel safe. And I think because Bowie was out there doing the heart, like the work, that we see in artists now, like again, like Janelle Monáe or Lizzo or Lady Gaga. There are millions of like like Gen Z and millennials who are feeling a lot more comfortable about exploring who they are, like as far as like sexual identity, who they are artistically, or just who they are in general, because he wasn't afraid to do that.
That's very true. That's very true. One thing I wanted to touch on that you brought up, which sadly we're seeing this less and less and less, is artists who do have a catalog that stretches back and back that we can generously cherry pick what we like. And for me, as an example, I'm pretty sure my first inkling of who he was growing up dates me too. But growing up watching MTV and
Oh
saying
yeah,
like
he was one of the first artists on there.
right, and when watching the videos
Yeah,
from like Let's Dance and things like that, which was really prevalent.
he was
But I
doing videos
know
before
grow
Let's Dance, though. Sorry, didn't mean to talk over you.
right, but like me growing up, I there was just a time where it was like you were saying where artists come in and out of fashion. This is true. And I just remember the Earthling album coming out in the mid to late 90s and me going like hearing it and going like, well, what the hell is that? And then people were telling me like that's David Bowie. I'm like, that's not David Bowie. And they're like, oh, it is. And I knew the voice and everything, but I'm going, well, what? And
That's how
that,
most people felt, yeah, about Tin Machine when he started his own rock band. They're like, huh? And then when
yeah, and that
people
was
found
what
out,
was so great
yeah,
because that was the
yeah,
antithesis of kind of
uh-huh,
the pop phase kind of petering out and him going like, well, I've just got to drop everything and reinvent myself. And when I discovered those Tin Machine records later, after like
hmm
the whole grunge explosion happened, it was like, oh, and this predated that by years in terms of being popular in popular culture. So I guess it's just one of those things where, and I also really enjoyed his relationship with the press, where he was kind of like Dylan, where he was just flippant about it, and people were just going to follow him and ask him ridiculous questions. But one
like
of my favorite
like when he slept
quotes,
with Mick Jagger.
right? One of my favorite quotes by him, and you touched upon some of his quotes too, was not that artists aren't a part of culture, artists make culture, which is always a misconception that, artists are part of something and, we're part of a community. That's not the
hmm
same thing. We are the ones that create things that become the art that becomes this, whatever you want to call it, album or something.
hmm
So I guess take me back to when you were younger and um, do you remember a particular song or album or music video where you heard or saw Bowie where you went like, this guy's doing something different? Or was it just someone kind of just, an amalgamation over time?
Well, it wasn't, again, it wasn't like, I mean, he was always there because I'm
Right.
a Gen
Yeah.
Xer, 80s kid, well, late 70s, early 80s kid. Uh, so he was there like in the music that I listened to, like, but so was Duran Duran, and so was Cyndi Lauper and all,
Michael Jackson. Yeah.
yeah, all of that.
It's just
It
ubiquitous. Yeah.
I would have to actually credit my brother for introducing me to early David Bowie, because if it wasn't for my brother John and him getting tickets and then that cassette, which I still have, it's worn out, but I still have it, uh, really was where I like connected with Bowie. But I think it also, because he did the whole like, you know, Major Tom, Spiders from Mars, Aladdin Sane, that whole like cosmic arc, uh, that also appealed to me because I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. So, I mean, he wrote Space Oddity based off of the Apollo 11 moon landing,
Right.
or actually, he was played by if I remember this correctly, it was played by the BBC, and they played his song. And it's funny because Major Tom is about a guy who goes up into space and can't come down
Right.
again.
It's
He's
just like,
basically like yeah, it's a very sad song, and I know that how I mean, because I read it in his biography, one of the biographies I have, that he wasn't real happy to know that his song had been immortalized that way because it was the complete opposite of what was happening with the moon landing.
but I think,
um,
it was just a genuine right place at the right time because
mhm.
no one could have bought that kind of publicity for their song. Back then before MTV, it was like to be attached to something that's
Oh
just
yeah,
a huge cultural
yeah,
event. I mean,
yeah. Well, he did videos before MTV, and but a lot of his videos that he had done ended up going into like heavy MTV rotation. Like Ashes to Ashes was made before, or filmed before MTV even existed. But I remember seeing that like all the time, along with his more current stuff from his Let's Dance album.
mhm.
And I did always love uh how, like, he just, because how some people have a face made for radio. That was not that guy. he was also a really versatile actor too. There's a lot of films that he did cameos in. Like most people don't know this, but he played Pontius Pilate in the Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ.
Right.
I know more people like my younger brother and sister remember him from Zoolander, just that like 2 minute cameo he did. Um, but there was something about him that was just like always, like there's always something about Bowie that's quintessentially Bowie. I can't put my finger on it, but I mean, whether he was, Aladdin Sane, or he was the Thin White Duke, or he was I'm going to be in my angsty German nihilist period. uh, all of that, the connection that people have with Bowie, including myself, was always there. So, and who he influenced, I mean, basically the whole damn planet. I remember when the day that he died, or the night before the official announcement came out, I'd seen a post from TMZ that Bowie had died, and I'm like, oh come on, that's not true. So, but I just remember like it was actually bigger than when Michael Jackson died, because I remember when Michael Jackson died, that basically broke the internet. Like
Oh yeah.
Facebook crashed from everybody, like all the traffic that was going through there. And I still see, like even years later when people talk about David Bowie, it's just like, we still can't believe he's gone. So the anthology that I put together was put together, number one, as a tribute to David Bowie. I've seen a lot of other books written about him, like posthumously about him, but I hadn't seen an anthology like this.
Hmm.
I know that there's one other editor, Diana Borsenik. She did through Crisis Chronicles Press. She had done like just because they have a quarterly publication. Just she did David Bowie publication. This one took me a while though. It took me 5 years because I just was not ready to publish it. It was too personal.
Right.
So, but there's a lot of great work in there. I mean, there's poetry in here from Lynn Bronstein, from Jack Henry, Puma Pearl, Gary Lightfoot. We've got short stories in here from Brenda Petrakos, from Matt McGee, uh, and artwork from, this is my favorite piece. I don't know if you can see that, but it's this weird, like, collage by Paul Copel. He's a British, like, he calls himself a post neo expressionist.
Post.
Yeah, I guess he's covering all the bases. But for me, this is a lot more personal than any other anthology I've ever done, because this is a person who affected me directly, and always will.
Right. Oh, I can see that. You were mentioning some of his acting roles, and one of my favorite later roles, and just because it's just a great movie overall, was The Prestige, where he played Tesla.
Oh, I saw that. That was awesome.
And man, what a great role for him. I mean, and just great across the board, of course,
Mhm. Well,
Um,
did you ever see Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence?
I saw it when I was younger, so I think he played like a soldier.
He played a British soldier that
Yeah, I'm barely
became a
remembering
POW,
now.
that ended up in a Japanese POW camp, and it was, I'm surprised he didn't get a BAFTA for that actually. Oh, and he played the Elephant Man on Broadway.
That's true. That's true.
Except on Facebook.
Right.
All right.
What's the name of your piece?
This piece is called Black Star. It's opposite a wonderful painting by Heather Schubert.
Oh, can we see the picture?
If I can do it justice here. Let's see here.
Ooh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty. She's really talented.
That's
I have several
fantastic.
other multimedia pieces. Black Star. 1. I haven't been able to listen to it yet. Leonard Cohen died. Now John Prine is gone, and I can't listen to it. The world has changed the way it was afraid it would change. I still can't bring myself to listen. A humorous quip about Mr. Jones holding the world together just might be more accurate than we all realize. But the songs remain unplayed. I will listen to anything and everything else on whims of my own creation, as the multitudes protest, the flux, and refuse to adjust. From the earliest broadcasts to his greatest triumphs, while the counter remains at zero, my eardrums untouched. Is it a perfection akin to the blank page that stops me? Perfection is death. That's a long way around to reach the same state. No, that's not it. 2, there's always a jar of pennies somewhere. Sometimes I don't know what that means. Then there are speculations of several sorts. The mundanity of the financial aside, things get strange quickly. The coins themselves transported backward through various hands, again and uncut, unscored, unstamped. The individual stock becomes once again part of something bigger. For a moment, until the constituents, unalloyed, regain identity, everything moves faster until the ingots cool, and into the cart they go, and across the floor, and out the door to retrace a long journey across and into the earth. They ask for your 2 cents worth, then place it over your eyes. 3, I find myself standing near the entrance, just inside a record shop, at once both seeming intense, amoeba-like, and as if a corner shop just off campus. Without work of limb, I travel towards the always desired back of the racks as glaciers melt and freeze, and islands rise and fall, and civilizations fail, and movements crumble, and people fall again and again. A tilted screen on a half-open back door, asphalt, a mess of a dumpster, requisite heat mirage, and beyond the grass, stones a tilt. Now I'm moving, procession by Fonda and Hopper, dreamt by Altman and Super 8, Carnaby, absinthe, horns, feathers, skin, and all. We've lost the candidate. And I listen to the corpus again. Time is funeral wrappings, and the tomb is a womb. 4, the most photographed hairdo from a Ziggy Stardust days is from a Ziggy Stardust days. I hear my love say to our freshly widowed friend. And I can't write eulogies for people who will never die. I watch that mullet bob on a rubber ducky, my legs a lagoon, as Bandcamp plays. I imagine his active contemplation, and I don't write eulogies for people who will never die. As Ziggy Stardust rubs against my temple, exuberant jazz piano plays. And I won't write eulogies for people who will never. It seems I'm very far away. Ziggy Stardust on my face. Standing on the far side of Versailles, on the far side of everything, is a hell of a thing to say. But is it real? Is it what's meant to be said? I've heard our main job is transporting water from place to place. And yet, we are all becoming significantly aware of the concept of data storage. I have a compact disc sealed under the sign of the Black Star. Might as well be in a cave behind a stone, or sitting in the sun like bread rising. I stand here on concrete like some exotic bird. A dicey character exclaims his thoughts of me. mannequin. He thinks, this American, or does he? The world is beginning to think in past tense, like calling a pandemic a classic. Makes no sense. And reacting is not thought. I have a body of light, digitized, awaiting resurrection, and a poem to live. Goodbye, David.
Wow,
There you go.
that was great, man. That could tell it hit you pretty hard, just like a lot of us. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you're a part of the anthology, and hopefully we will see you out there on the promotion trail and at the readings. You know, giving your all and kind of just spreading the word about David's influence on everybody.
Yeah, it might be nuanced slightly differently on stage, as you know.
Oh
But
yeah,
you
it's
have a-
always different when you're standing at a microphone rather than sitting on a Zoom chat. It's just the
Oh yeah.
nature of the
Well,
beast.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure we had plenty of good times. That's for sure at those readings. Good to see you, Eric. I'm
Good to
gonna
see you,
turn the
Charles.
headphones over to Marie.
All right.
Audio.
I'd like to hear yours, actually. I'd like to hear yours.
Okay, sure thing. I'll read mine here. This poem right here is called Starman to Black Star. This is Starman to Black Star, calling from deep space. Are you receiving me clearly somewhere under the god? I'm floating most peculiarly in this little wonder machine. They call it a moon age daydream for absolute beginners. By making yourself a spectacle, you allow the rest of us to feel normal and to feel like we were part of something. No thin white dukes in here. We are all on the outside tonight. Never let me down, Black Star. We need the magic dance again. It's a space oddity, to be sure. Reach the bridge together and play the catchiest chords ever. C, F, F, G, A, A from Major Tom. This is Black Star to Starman, calling from deep inside. Are you still afraid of Americans and their rebel chic? I'm just an earthling spinning while the stars are out tonight, learning the heart's filthy lesson and that we can be heroes. Ashes to ashes and the fire's glow, but that's the way of modern love. Burning, burning, burned out, under pressure, and now to dust. There is no more David to label. There is only the man who sold the world to a genie for fame. Still no anonymity in the golden years. Even when I write about you, my words are forced to become lyrical and abstract. Jump, they say, but I'll rule a little longer. Now bring me the head of the disco king. That's it.
Yes, I'm being totally unbiased, but yours is one of my favorites. Actually,
Oh.
everything in here is my favorite, but especially that. I have one here by Lucy Tate. It's called Requiem. So this is your requiem. So let's dance under the momentous moonlight. But if you say run, we'll run with you, Starman, and sing under the bright bald moon hanging in the sky. Dancing, spinning, twirling, spiraling, suddenly wondering how we got old enough for you to become stardust. All the lights seemed to disappear when you fell away from Earth, taking the stars and the moon with you that night. I thought of those you left behind, like all of us who remain here staring at pictures and ephemera on the walls, heterochromatic eyes staring back at us, rebel playing in the background at the K Sarah bar. I suddenly thought of old poems I've written about the precarious moon, the hidden meaning of nothing, the bleak moments following the loss of a little star boy, and floating in my own tin can high above the world. Oh, Major Tom, oh, Starman, oh, Thin White Duke, oh, Lazarus, indeed, your stars look different today. This is Your Requiem, and that's by Lucy Tate. And it can be
Excellent.
found in Ashes to Stardust, a David Bowie tribute anthology, both available as an ebook and paperback on Amazon.
Oh yeah, that was going to be another one of my questions.
Sorry, I just figured
What?
I'd sneak it
No,
in
no,
there.
you're fine. Yeah, I just wanted to find out if there was going to be information about the book available on the Sybaritic Press website. Is that kind
And
of a funnel you want people to follow that
right
wormhole?
now that right now they can find it on Amazon, and I'm in the process of setting up some virtual and in-person events for the next 6 months. Uh, and if anyone wants to find out about that, then I'll be posting through my Instagram and Facebook notifications, or they can find me on Facebook if they have any questions.
Excellent. So I guess just speak a little bit about yourself in terms of where can people find the work by the wonderful Marie herself. I know we can speak about poetic diversity. Is there some other avenues you'd like people to know about?
Well, actually, Poetic Diversity I put to bed uh, last
But
year.
it's still up and
Yeah,
available.
it's still there's like over 1,000 writers, artists, and poets, not just from Southern California, but from pretty much all around the world. I have two other weekly blogs that I curate. One is called Dashboard Horace, and it's for travel themed poetry, writing, and artwork for places both real and imagined. So if you Google Dashboard Horace, you can go to the blog, you'll find the submission guidelines there. And the other one is called Alchemia Poetica. It's a women's art and literary journal. That one I actually started a few years ago, but I didn't really do anything with it until last year. And they are both registered with the Library of Congress, so they are officially periodicals.
Excellent.
And
Oh,
yeah, anyone.
go ahead.
Oh, and if you want to find my work, you can just Google it like online. I've actually had some pretty good the last 6 months have been really good publication wise. I ended up in like 4 or 5 different anthologies, including a couple that I didn't think I even had like a snowball's chance in hell at.
Well,
But
it's like they say though, you just got to keep throwing stuff at the wall, see what sticks. And
yep.
one thing I like to tell new or just writers that are just kind of getting used to the submission game is, it's not sometimes unless you're writing with your elbows and using a paintbrush or something, which could get kind of messy, I hear.
Mhm.
Um, it's not really so much the writing as it is when it comes to submission. Sometimes you're just way too close to the deadline and they've already gotten a plethora of stuff and they're just over inundated and it's like they'll
See, now I got to get on my soapbox. Okay, so I know what you're asking me. For any writer that's interested in starting to get published, following the guidelines is 50% of the process. You could have written the equivalent, like a 21st century equivalent of War and Peace, but if you're not following the guidelines, then you set 50% of your chance. So now, even if you follow the guidelines and your work gets rejected, it's for one of three reasons. Number one, you didn't polish it up enough, which by the way, I have been guilty of many times and still am, because I get eager and you're like, send. Number two, it doesn't resonate with the editor, which I think is the biggest reason. I mean, you could have written something wonderful, and that person could be dead inside. I've had those days. Uh, which is why by the way, officially when that happens, that's usually when when I was working on Poetic Diversity, I would bring in a guest editor, because if something was not resonating with me, having a guest editor take a look and make the final decision it helped me get back to that objective place as an editor. Number three, they already have enough. So usually it could be a combination of all three, or it could be one of those three. But following guidelines is not that hard. If someone wants, most publications out there take simultaneous submissions. By the way, I don't. Uh, so if you can put together a Google Doc or a Word doc with everything in, 12-point Roman single or double spaced with a bio, and then you can email it to them, or, stick it through Submittable, then if you've already done your job as far as like following the guidelines, then that's really your first hurdle. So
Yeah, words to live by. And as we wrap it up here, I just wanted to say not only thank you to you, but also to Chuck for his great reading.
thank you for
All
your
of
poem. It was wonderful.
Thank you. All of the wonderful authors and artists who helped make the anthology possible, because just kind of getting a kind of a physical look at some of those. It's just one of those things where when somebody physically holds up the book and shows you the inside, it's just more of a thrill, you know. And you can see all of the amazing illustrations, just fantastic.
There's
Um,
only there's not as much artwork in here that I'd like. I don't know if you can see that. This is by Heather Schubert, she actually designed the cover for the Bronte tribute anthology I did back in 2019. She's a wonderful artist. Uh, and then there's a that by Paul Popel. And then I have a couple of photographs in here. I went to David Bowie's star in the Walk of Fame. And after like waiting there for an hour, I was able to get this shot. I don't know if you can see it.
yeah, it's a busy place.
Well, no, it's just there's this dude who's like he's stepping off of David Bowie's star. So it's almost like he's just jumping